Marketing, marketing, marketing. This one word is one of the most important concepts in business. However, marketing, especially digital marketing, is a uncharted territory for many entrepreneurs and small business owners. And that's what this episode is all about, how to use marketing to grow your business. Welcome back to Sundays with Josue, a show that's all about serving as education and inspiration for the next generation of entrepreneurs. And on this episode, we have a very special guest, a expert in digital marketing. Now, Galvin has been in digital marketing for over a decade. And what's really unique about him is that not only does he work as a marketer, he also works as a coach and consultant through the Digital Marketer Man brand. And through the company with which he is a managing partner, Trinity Marketing Solutions, he has been able to do a phenomenal job with digital marketing. Now, one of the most impressive things about him is that he truly is very results and bottom line driven, which is important to any business owner because when you are spending your hard earned money and revenue on marketing, you want to make sure you're actually able to generate results. So that brings the question, what type of results have Gavin been able to produce? Well, for one of his clients, he was able to measure that he was able to increase that client between $30,000 to $40,000 in sales through organic reach. So that means marketing they did for free. And in addition, through various marketing channels, paid versus organic, he has been able to generate over $3.5 million in sales for his clients. And these clients have spanned an array of different industries and business types. So if there's anyone better to talk about digital marketing with, I don't know them, and please introduce me to them. But with that being said, I do want to go ahead and bring on my friend, Gavin McNeil.
What's going on? How you doing?
Doing good, my friend. I'm really excited to just, hop right on in here and give people value because I think that digital marketing is one of those areas where many business owners struggle and maybe have some questions and confusions. Would you agree?
Yeah, absolutely. The industry as a whole is pretty confusing to say the least. There's 100 different ways you can do it, and a lot of people, giving you the right advice, but at the wrong time, and vice versa. So,
Yes, very much so. And I think one of the things about digital marketing that is really important to keep in mind is that everything is so context dependent. You can take one ad, run it on one social media platform like YouTube or TikTok, and then take that exact same ad and run it in the same methodology on a different platform like Facebook, and you see varying results. So, so I think that giving context of digital marketing, what it is, why it's important, how to be part of our businesses is really important. So let's go ahead and just try to give some macro context. So in general, what would you say digital marketing is for someone who is new into entrepreneurship?
yeah. So, at a very basic level, marketing is getting your business out to the world, right? Getting your services, your products out to the world. Digital marketing is just taking that to a digital format, right? So, the social media, paid advertising on the digital side. And you could even argue that some billboards are now becoming digital advertising because they have gone to that digital side of things. Um,
Hmm.
Now we're also getting into the virtual reality world, going into digital marketing. So
Oh yeah.
it's a really cool industry because it's always evolving, but it's very fast paced in that way. What worked yesterday isn't going to work today necessarily.
Very much so. And what went viral yesterday may not necessarily go viral today. And trends in digital marketing, as you know, on social media are changing so rapidly. So, bird's eye view, what's some advice that you would give to somebody in regards to the digital marketing who's starting their business or who's maybe like in their first 3 years of business?
Yeah. So if you're within the first 3 years of business, especially if you're just starting a business, I would stay away from the paid advertising. Paid advertising is something that you're going to have to keep putting money into. If you're going to do paid advertising, I would have the organic side figured out first. This is just the most important thing because with paid advertising, you have to keep putting that money in to keep getting those results, right? So the
Mhm.
second paid advertising stops working for you, you have nothing to lean back onto. With organic advertising, such as SEO, social media, things like that, you can really gain a lot more traction and have that consistent income coming in and consistent traffic for your business without having to continuously put money into that.
Of course, especially when someone's in their first 5 years of business or so. oftentimes that's in the bootstrapping stage, trying to keep
Yep.
expenses low and trying to crank out mass amounts of revenue as fast as really possible. So let's say someone is in that scenario, right? They want to go ahead and start doing organic traffic, like you mentioned. Focus on
Mhm.
organic, you can get more traction, and you're not, you don't have the liability of the paid advertisements no longer working, and thus you're just getting money. So they're going ahead. They decided they're going to focus on organic. Now, do you recommend they learn how to do it themselves, hire an agency? What's your perspective on that?
Um, Really the big thing is budget. How do you want to spend that? The biggest thing is if you're going to have somebody else do it for you, it's going to cost you a decent amount of money. That's, 5, 10, 15 grand a month that you're looking at spending. If you're spending any less than that, then you got to be careful with the results that you're actually going to get from that. Most of the time, they're really just going to help you set up everything that's going to, eventually get you the leads that you need to actually pay for that. So, unfortunately, a lot of the marketing out there is not going to, you put $1 in, you get $2 out right away. That's something that you have to work towards, you have to test. And, that's where we really recommend the organic. Now, I highly suggest you actually get some good quality info as to how to get started on your Instagram, how to get started on whatever platform you want to go after. If it's B2B, typically you want to be on LinkedIn. YouTube is usually the platform I suggest right off the bat because you get a lot of long form content from that. And that is something you can repurpose on all the different platforms, which is really nice. You're
Mhm.
spending a lot of time getting that long form content right that then can be repurposed for all these platforms. So, YouTube is just a great place to start. It is one of the bigger search engines a lot of people don't realize, but it's up there with Google because a lot, like oftentimes I will go to YouTube because I'd much rather consume that content on a video basis rather than, reading through a 30-page article or something like that that was
Sure.
just put there for the SEO value.
Yeah.
So
And then
that's
as an important aspect as well, like you mentioned, you would when you want to find when you're searching for something, you want to learn a new skill, maybe just get some basic information. Instead
yep.
of going to Google and trying to read it, you went to instead to look for a video form. And that's another thing I think that people sometimes forget to do is step into the foot of their consumer, whatever industry they're in, and think about what platform does the consumer use, what are their behavioral patterns, etc.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, this is something that we dive into in depth with every single client that we bring on for, more of a long-term basis. We have to really dive in depth into we literally talk about the day-to-day of a person. At 8 a.m., they wake up and they're on Facebook to get their news. At 10 a.m., they're just going into work. They might be on Reddit just checking out a few things pretty quickly. By 12 p.m., they're having their lunch break and they might be watching, a particular channel or TV at that point in the lunchroom, right? So there's many different platforms out there that people are consuming content from. And you really have to get a good idea of not only what those platforms are, but when people are using those platforms to really optimize.
That's a good point. I didn't think about the different times at which people use different platforms and where their state of mind is during that time. That's important. Maybe early in the morning you may want to release a motivational video, right?
Yeah.
But then later on in the afternoon you may want to release a video more about strategy. And the reason why I say that is because early in the morning someone's just going to work, motivation will probably hit really well for them. Whereas excuse me. Whereas at night, trying to get someone amped up, trying to get someone amped up to go work even more may not go over as well as you can imagine.
No,
So you
no, not
mentioned
at all.
something, 100%. So you mentioned something I think that was really important, and I want to give some people some context for those who may not know. So when you say a long form piece of content and repurposing it for those different platforms, can you go into like what that means exactly, what that process looks like?
Yeah, so YouTube is, a great platform for obviously we're in this world where, everyone kind of has this ADD, this 5 to 10 second attention span. And that's almost over exaggerating it to some points. But you really have this world that we live in where, everyone's trying to consume that short form content, but there's still a lot of people in this world that do like that long form content. And the long form content is pretty much that 10, 20, 30-minute video that even goes on to 1, 2 hour, 3 hour, live streams like what we're doing right now. This would be considered long form content that you can then go and split up into a bunch of short form content for Instagram, TikTok, even Twitter. I know is, kind of a fast-paced social media. So that is all really great places that you can use the same exact content that you've already produced. You just got to snip it up and put it into the context and the content form that people are actually checking out on those platforms.
Oh yeah, and for those business owners who may not think that short form content is worth their time, because I know it can sound ludicrous to spend over an hour in some cases on a 15-second clip or video, but the amount of reach and engagement you get is literally, you're gonna, on average, at least in my experience, get 10x your amount of exposure, just raw new eyes looking at your content on short form than you would long form. If you compare YouTube videos versus TikTok and the ease of virality, it's night and day difference. So it is one of those things where if you have a product that you can sell a lot more, like especially if your product is very general, like clothing or something that affects like insurance, just getting your product out in front of more eyes is of paramount importance. So don't neglect short form content at all. That's a fact.
Yep, absolutely, absolutely. No, I
Mm-hmm.
totally agree with that.
So on the macro, let's say someone is not in the same position as the previous case study. They're not bootstrapping. They have a little bit more cash, a little bit more capital. They're a bit more experienced. Would you recommend that they hire an agency, or should they spend time themselves learning how to digital market? What's your perspective? Because there's a lot of resources out there to teach yourself how to do digital marketing. But what's your personal perspective?
Yeah, so with any platform you're getting into, whether that's, SEO, whether it's YouTube, Instagram, LinkedIn, I would always have some foundational knowledge on that before you go and try to hire someone to do it or even consult with someone about it. Because at the end of the day, you want to bring knowledge to the table. So you're not wasting your time with a coach, with a consultant, and you actually know, if you're working with someone, they're actually producing results. My big
Mm-hmm.
thing is understand how you can see results through whatever platform you're going to go into. SEO, what most people find as successful in SEO is their website is ranking number 1, number 2, number 3. Whereas, the click through rate itself is going to be 3rd, 4th, 5th on the list of priorities for a lot of business owners. But in reality, that is what is actually driving the value to your business, right? So, the followers on Instagram really is not that big of a deal. Right now, I only have 5,000 followers on Instagram, but I can consistently produce quality clients from that just from my reach out, right? It's not like I'm putting amazing content out on Instagram, and I'm not doing it even on a consistent basis, which I do not suggest at all. If you can consistently put out quality content on Instagram, that's worked out much better for my clients. We had a client who did great on TikTok for luxury shipping container homes. They're over 200,000 followers now and millions of views. And they actually have a lot of, they kind of joke about this idea of, oh, it's just a bunch of 13-year-olds on
Mm-hmm.
TikTok. That was 2 years ago. That was a year ago. Now we're starting to see, a much more adult audience on there. My mom just asked me about TikTok, my 50 plus mom, which
Mm-hmm.
she'll hate me for even saying her age on a live stream. But she's staying hip with it, and she's in real estate and everything, and is already understanding the value of that, even in the real estate industry. So, getting onto these platforms early on is really important. But to come back to your question of like, where should you kind of start? Should you start with going right to a marketing agency? I'd say if that marketing agency doesn't offer any coaching consulting, you might want to be worried. If they're trying to get you on a 3-month contract at $2,000 to $5,000 a month, I'd be wary of that. That's typically what we're doing, but we offer a free consultation right off the bat. First of all, to make sure that that person is someone we actually want to work with.
Of course.
We've had people in the past that we just can't work with them because their expectations are very unrealistic. So we're very realistic about the expectations that you should have going into a lot of this. And that's where the coaching and consulting can really be beneficial.
100%. Because, like you said, if you have no idea, what an impression is, you probably should not be talking to a digital marketer yet, because you need to learn some of the basic lingo so that when they're able to say, hey, this month I was able to generate 1 million impressions, you don't think it's 1 million leads, and then you get highly
No.
suspicious when you find that it's not. And I think what
Yeah.
you mentioned, actually, that concept of expectations is super important. And I think that's important not only in business but also social relationships. When you start the interaction and you have the rules set out and the conditions set up front, like in the case of digital marketing, for example, you can say, hey, sir, within the next 90 days, you should see a measurable increase in your business. That's a whole different conversation versus I'm going to come in and blow your business up and we're going to make so much money together,
Yeah.
and what actually each person does may very well be the same in both cases, but the business owner being aware that, hey, this is still a valuable service, but it's going to take a bit more time than I initially thought. It's not as simple as simply hit go on Facebook and then you get leads the next day. Oftentimes there is trial and error. So, like you mentioned, having proper expectations up front is super important in business and in life, I would argue.
Oh, absolutely. Especially in life.
Oh yeah. So actually, normally I go ahead and go to the social media questions at the end of the video, but this one was actually very much on point with what we're discussing now.
Mhm.
And so Stephen asked, how can we know that our digital marketing is working?
Yeah, so trackability is the biggest thing. To have the short answer, trackability. If you don't have a way of tracking how many leads are coming through Instagram, that's very important to have right off the bat. There's plenty of, like, you could have Google Analytics. There's so many different ways of actually tracking, and that's the beautiful thing about digital marketing. A lot of people can't track the leads that come from a billboard because they just have their website up there, right? There's no actual tangible way of seeing how many people are actually coming to your company and spending money with you from that billboard. Now, there are better ways, like QR codes have become a great way of being able to track that. But even people, who own businesses don't track how many people use that menu that's sitting on the table, that QR code menu that's sitting on the table at the restaurants. That alone can convert so many people if it pulls up an email newsletter right there. And you have a way of, converting someone to be more of a long-term customer, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, Now, this is a little different for, let's say the real estate industry. Obviously, that customer isn't going to continue to come back for you unless this person wants to buy like 4 houses over the next year, which is very rare, but
It does
you do have
happen.
those instances.
Mm-hmm.
But, that's a great way of saying, okay, this person has bought a house from us. Now we can go into, when the right time is to sell for them. And then that is just like, I know real estate agents that have had someone buy, sell houses for the last 4 or 5 years, and those people are extremely happy. Those, real estate customers are extremely happy because that person is actually making money at that point off of their properties, as well as the real estate agent, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of a win-win situation, but there would be no way of doing that had they not had the email and had they not been tracking in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of different resources to do that trackability. Google Analytics is going to be one of the best ones. That integrates into a lot of the, build your own websites such as Shopify, Squarespace, all that stuff. They have the e-commerce side of that. So you can actually track all the way from what traffic source, whatever that's Google organic, Bing organic, is actually generating you, X amount. So Google Analytics is, hands down one of the best ones. It's really frustrating. Like, we won't work with people who do not like Google because it just makes
Ah.
it so difficult for us to actually track their business.
Mm-hmm.
Google Analytics is pretty much hands down one of the best ones for that.
Yeah.
Um, there's a bunch of different ways to go about trackability though.
Mm-hmm.
It's you want to make sure that you're getting those conversion rates and you're getting value to the business. That's the
Yeah.
biggest thing. There's so
Hmm.
many different ways of going about that. I couldn't go into every single one on on this
Of
call.
course, of course, and it is important to understand, like you mentioned, different industries have different strategies you can implement into what you're doing. And I think that like that answers Keith's question very well. That making sure that I would say it's twofold. One, like you said, trackability, making sure you're seeing the numbers. Having your person you're working with show you the analytics. Let's see what's happening on a month-to-month basis. Of course, being patient and having proper expectations, but at the same time, show me the numbers. And
Yeah,
number two, when you doing the tracking, make sure you have some type of system that you can have like a long-term relationship with your client. So if you sold them a home, make sure you have their email still, maybe even their phone number. That way you have a database of clients over the long term, which can only bring you value in the long run. So I think that's a really
yep,
great way to answer that question.
absolutely. And
Hmm.
just to add one more thing to that, trackability is important. You want to avoid giving too much weight to vanity metrics, which are the followers, the likes, the engagements. Those are all important and will build on top of that conversion rate. But at the end of the day, it's not the most important thing. So,
Of course. And I think
exactly.
something else to keep in mind about, like you mentioned, the vanity metrics is that that's primarily what they are. They're vanity metrics. They're metrics that make you feel better, but don't necessarily show you the health of your business.
Yeah.
Especially, for example, let's use Instagram. There are ways that people have been able to generate fictitious followers, and you see their follower count 1 million, 2 million, etc. And you're like, wow, this is amazing. But then when they post a video or a picture or they run an ad, the amount of reach, aka the amount of people who actually see their ad, who see their video, etc., is actually oftentimes substantially lower than their follower count. And that obviously happens whether your followers are fictitious or not. But like you said, making sure that you're tracking the right things, what's actually going to carry over to your business. If you made a commercial, then the number of impressions, the people that have actually seen that video matters a whole lot more than your follower count. Because there's cases of people who have very low follower counts, but they're getting disproportionately high impressions and views, especially once again on the short form content pieces. So, like you mentioned, making sure you're tracking the most important things, not focusing on vanity metrics and focusing on the bottom line and focusing on what grows your business is important. We can see the results driven aspect of your personality in this interview, which is good.
Oh yeah.
So, so on that note, we're so far we've been talking to the person that understands digital marketing, they're receptive to it, they want to learn more, they want to learn about impressions and the conversions and click through rate. But what would you say to someone who's maybe an older entrepreneur, they're a bit more old fashioned, and for them, their perspective is that it's not worth learning digital marketing or going into that arena because the old fashioned way is working just fine.
Yep. Yeah, so I love working with these people actually. Most of my clientele are 50 plus, which cracks me up. Um,
Hmm.
one of my favorite people that I work with is the example you brought up. In the first month we generated him 30 to $40,000 on his new e-commerce brand, and that was all through organic. So he's starting to see the value of what digital marketing is and the power of that. So I wouldn't say like let's completely disregard the old fashioned way of word of mouth marketing is still very viable, and you can do that both digitally and offline. So word of mouth marketing is still very much viable. Print is still very much viable. It's not completely dead at the end of the day. Um, but you're seeing that, eventually it might die off. Right now, it's like if your target audience is 50 plus, print is probably, in some cases working better for you,
Oh yeah.
especially if you're looking 70 plus, 80 plus. It's Viagra. That's something that most people are going to be touching base on in magazines, not in
Hmm.
magazines, but newspapers. You'll see that pretty often. Restaurants for an older generation will be advertised in newspapers still. So it's still very viable. Is it as viable as digital marketing? In my opinion, not so much, because the cost of that is still very high to
Hmm.
print everything, to actually get that in front of an audience, to pay USPS to distribute that print. That is a lot of money up front. So it's typically not my first recommendation, especially for a startup business. um, Digital marketing is just much cheaper, it's much more effective right off the bat. um,
Hmm.
but I don't want to completely disregard the old way, unless we're talking about websites. Traditional website design is kind of something that I'm pretty avid about, I'm pretty
Hmm.
against in the sense of, setting up a website and forgetting it for the next 5 years. It's a little bit annoying because websites can be such an asset in the sense of you can create a website, and if you continuously improve that by just a little, you put a blog post up, you create it, a little better month after month, that is going to increase tenfold for you in the next year. Whereas the current website, if you just set it and forget it, that's going to decline in value and inevitably become a liability because you have to pay for that website, you have to pay for that hosting. So inevitably, it starts costing you money versus actually making you money.
Yeah, 100%. And something else that you mentioned that's really a good point is how your website can be a liability, especially like you mentioned, if you do not take care of it and update it frequently. There's actually a strategy for entrepreneurs who are more focused on growth through acquisition and buying companies that are distressed. One of the strategies is actually to organize your Google searches by the date of which the website was last updated and putting it in reverse chronological order. So you're looking at the websites that are the oldest since like 5 years, 6 years, 7 years, 10 years since they've been updated, and using that as a methodology to find an owner in distress to acquire their company. Now, additionally, on social media, like with Instagram, the date of you're only as relevant as your last three posts. If you posted 6 months ago, people are going to see your company and oftentimes think your company has shut down. And it's
Yeah.
crazy to believe that nowadays everything is so predicated upon your online presence, but that's really how it is now. Just the overall social milieu of our society. Not to make a judgment statement about it, whether it's good or bad, but I think the facts point to that. But like you said, having a traditional way of doing business is worth and valid, especially if you've built a large business off of doing just that. We're not saying to discard it, but you are definitely leaving yourself open to potential disruption if you don't modernize along with times. You
Yep.
know?
Yeah, and one of my first clients fell victim to this when Uber first came around. I was working with this company. I'm not going to say any names or anything, just to protect their, their them, because they're really good people. Um, but unfortunately, they did run a transportation company in this valley I grew up in, and Uber was like half the price of what they cost. But giving, to do and like the Uber XL back in the day was much cheaper than what they were charging. They were trying to charge anywhere from $400 to $800 between the airport and the mountains, which was reasonable for the longest time because they had these really nice cars. They had these big SUVs that would, just plow through the snow. And it worked out really well for them up until Uber could charge for that same trip 100 to $200, right?
Wow. Yeah.
So, and it was much easier to get an Uber than to go through their website and fill out an application and maybe get a call 48 hours later, maybe. At that point, that's when people were getting very used to user friendliness,
Of course.
Um, so, unfortunately, they fell victim very quickly. I mean, they went out of business within 2 years over that.
Man.
From going to having a successful business that bought them a home in a very nice valley to not having a business at all. That's kind of the effect that digital marketing is having. And that's why I wanted to get good at it. And I encourage a lot of people to at least have a really good understanding of it. They don't have to be great at it, but at least having an understanding of it's going to be very important.
Yeah. At what point do you think what knowledge base, like how would a business owner assess their knowledge of digital marketing and know when they are competent enough to maybe discuss things in an intelligent way with a digital marketing company or agency?
Yeah, so I mean that's kind of a difficult question in the sense that there's so many different avenues.
Hmm.
Um, I would be very specific in which avenue you want to go down. If that's SEO, get very fluent in SEO verbiage, right?
Hmm.
That's going to be very important. Understand keyword research to a basic level. Understand local SEO versus just general SEO. These are all little nuances within SEO that's, are going to be important to know when you're talking to someone about it. Local ranking is a big way that's, going to help those businesses that are very much so brick and mortar. They have a shop that they need customers that, are walking into that shop. And that's really, where you kind of have like, this dilemma of like, okay, how is Instagram going to help people, help a business like that?
Yeah.
Instagram can be very localized as well. You just have to use it in the right way and know how to use it in that localized way. There's a lot
Hmm.
of different ways that you can tag for local areas, right? So, it's just understanding the platform that you really want to go after and just having the fundamentals down. Um,
Yeah.
my big thing is like I love this book by Alan Dibb, I believe it is. It's the one page marketing plan. If you can use a platform that goes over all 9 steps of that book, then that is really going to set you up for success in the sense that you have a full marketing campaign set up from A to B with that book. And it makes it very simple because it's literally one page you're working off of.
Hmm.
So this is something that I suggest if you own a business, have this instilled in your mind, this one page marketing plan. That is the easiest way, most simplified way to actually build out a campaign without it being too intimidating.
And what was the name of that book one more time, please?
The One Page Marketing Plan by Alan Dibb,
Nice.
Allendib. Yeah, that's a great
Perfect.
book. I don't have the physical one, I just have that as a digital. Great book, though. One of my
Nice.
favorites.
Perfect. I always love being able to give people resources on this show and have them, be able to self-educate. So that's really, thank you so much for doing that. And,
Yeah.
the way you address that question, I think is really wise. Like you mentioned, yes, it's important to learn about marketing and digital marketing on a broad sense, but first start with niche. Start with start not only with the platform you want to use, but also the goal of that platform. For example, do I want to have more brand awareness? Do I want to create leads? Do I want to create customers? Do I want to get reviews? There are many different desires and outcomes you can have for each platform. So learning both just the platform, but also the reason you intend to use it is a really of paramount importance. I think you did a really good job of addressing that. And on that topic of platforms, what platform do you think is the best one to start on with in 2022?
Oh man, I mean that's such a broad question. First of all, every business is going to do something different. If you're B2C, if you're, have an e-commerce brand, TikTok is typically going to be the best one. If you're, B2C local company, Google My Business, originally Google Business Profile, that is hands down one of the most lucrative ways. If you continuously update on that, that's going to be 10 times better than anything you do because that's what Google wants to see is they want to see content that's going to keep people on Google. And if you're
Hmm.
posting constant updates, posting constant events, then they're going to push you further than any other restaurant in that area, any other real estate brokerage. So that is really huge, and I think that's very unique because a lot of people are going to focus on the big four: the Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube. But in reality, Facebook and Instagram have become very much so pay to play in the sense of, if anyone's played video games here, it's a sense of, okay, you have to pay anything to actually play and win that game. So Instagram and Facebook have become that way very much so. Unless you're a personal brand, I think, the personal branding has gone much better on Instagram and Facebook up to an extent, but mostly Instagram and it's just a struggle with that right now. So if you have the money, go for it. But otherwise, TikTok and Google My Business Profile. LinkedIn is also a great place for B2B right now with a combination of a tool like Seamless. Seamless is incredible to use, and then it's pretty affordable too. It's just a platform that allows you to kind of pretty much stalk people on LinkedIn for specific industries, it just
Hmm.
makes it that much easier for you to narrow down exactly the people you should be talking to on LinkedIn. So that's a huge tool.
That's perfect. And I think that's what you said. Like depending on where you're at, especially if you're trying to save money, probably stay away from the Facebook and Instagram in particular from that pay to play. But if
Hold on,
you
I
want to
don't know. Is your mic? I can't hear you all that well now.
no, is it any better?
No, it must have switched.
Oh, let me see. Okay. How about now?
No,
No? Oh, let's see. But you know what? Actually, a little bit. Can you still hear me? Can you hear me now, or is it still kind of funky?
It's kind of muffled.
Okay. So I think what may have happened, my microphone may have died actually, unfortunately.
Uh-oh.
So I'll go ahead and let you do more talking to myself because we're almost done here. So I'm gonna go pop up some of the questions that we got from the audience, from my media. You just go ahead and run through these.
Awesome.
Mm-hmm.
So how long on average does SEO take? Depending on the niche, we typically tell somebody to, consider, at least a year of SEO before you're going to start seeing good results or great results. You can see results within a month or two in very specific niches. Um, but very rarely do you have a company that is so unique that they're going to be able to rank in their own blue ocean, is what we consider it. If you haven't heard of the blue ocean strategy, it's pretty much this concept of creating your own niche, and it's very rare that a business gets to do this, but that is very amazing for SEO, because it's kind of this combination of a lot of people are searching for it, but no one's really created a product or service for it. That is the sweet spot. That is where you want to build a new business nowadays, because there's just a lot of cookie cutter businesses going out. There's the coaching businesses, the consulting businesses, marketing agencies are a dime a dozen right now. So you really have to make yourself unique, especially if you're in those industries. Insurance is very hard to compete in, because it's very hard to kind of create new value in that area. So there's a bunch of different ways you can create value in a unique way. My thing is, like, I love this guy who's made taxes entertaining. Duke loves taxes. He's actually the guy I go to for my taxes. He's absolutely incredible, and he just makes it fun and entertaining. He's on Instagram and TikTok and all those platforms, and he does like these little skits where he's walking out of Chick-fil-A with this wig, and he doesn't know how to fill out his W-2 form or something like that. And it's just this giant W-2 form that he's holding. So he does all these really cool skits that makes that very entertaining. So that's something that I haven't seen in the insurance niche yet.
Yeah, and I haven't either. There's some content creators that are like trying to do so, but no one has really mastered it or completely taken it over. But that point of having a blue ocean, strategy and approach, excuse me, is super super powerful. Which, like you mentioned, is hard when you have an established business, because the easiest way to make money is to follow what someone else did to make money. So it's kind of hard to create an own original idea. But if you're able to, it's super powerful, especially when you combine it with digital marketing.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So Ralph asks, how do I make sure my site is mobile friendly?
Yeah, so this is hands down one of my favorite questions. I absolutely love optimizing websites for mobile. Mobile is really just an incredible platform. For the past 5 years, us marketers have been saying, "Hey, you have to optimize for your for mobile, because more people are going to that than ever before." Now it's finally to that point where there are more people looking at a website on mobile versus desktop. So the biggest thing, and there's hundreds of things we could talk about, but the biggest thing we'll look at, and I'll just pull up my phone and dark screen it here, is where our thumb is most of the time, right? It's very rarely up here, but on most of the websites that you have, the menu is at the very top, unfortunately. So my biggest suggestion, putting the menu at the bottom. That's going to be the biggest thing, because that's where your thumb is. That's where it's easy to get to, right? And then as you crawl up, it's like 75% of the action should be taken here, then 50% here. Very rarely is it going to be up here, right? And I'm a lefty. Most people are going to be a righty, so they can, click on this top right corner. But that's a struggle. You got to have long thumbs for that.
Wow, that's
But
that's
that's a
about.
very basic level of it. There's so many things you can do. Making sure the text is readable, making sure you're building your website on a platform that actually allows for responsive design, which is, something that allows it to go from desktop to mobile and back and forth, tablet devices as well. it's very important to have, a place that you're building your website that allows it to be responsive. This is where I typically don't suggest something like Wix, because it says it's responsive, but it really isn't. It's not actually, optimized for that in a very, good way. And it's not that easy. Like there's better systems with, WordPress themes such as Divi that makes it so easy to optimize for mobile. Um, and switch back and forth from your desktop to your mobile, make sure it looks good. So that is hands down one of my biggest recommendations right now is WordPress Divi. That has been the easiest way to build websites for the past 2 years, and it's only getting better. Divi has done an incredible job at making it so that you can build incredible websites on the WordPress platform without knowing any coding.
Perfect. Heck yeah. Are you able to hear me? Or is it still
Yep,
kind of funky? Okay,
that's
perfect.
still
Yes.
a little weird. Still
Still
a
a little
little
weird?
weird.
Okay. But that's a really good bit of advice and almost like gave that person a homework assignment as well, which I worked. Heck yeah. So then we got one last one and we can go ahead and wrap up. This is
Perfect.
a pretty good one. So Levi asks, is it better to use a local digital marketing company or does it not really matter?
Um, I mean, this is kind of an interesting question. If the local company is good, yeah. It really comes down to I like local companies because it's more of a personable experience. That is really, a great thing to have, that personable experience. If they can meet with you in person for the first couple of times, that's huge. If they're willing to do that right off the bat, that's a great sign. Typically the local digital marketing companies are a lot more um, focused, customer focused in the sense of they're not trying to scale that company to millions of clients, millions of dollars. So you get a lot more attention from the local digital marketing companies, typically, but not always.
Nice. That's really solid. Heck
Yep.
yeah. Well, Gavin, thank you so much for your time, my friend. This has been a really good episode. I think we're gonna have to do a part two with maybe talking about personal branding or a specific particular platform because, like you mentioned, digital marketing is such a very broad topic, and I think this serves as a pretty good introduction to the overall digital marketing, what it is, some things to look out for. But I think we should do a part two in a bit more detail for people who may have particular questions about certain platforms and like.
Absolutely. Yeah, we
Mhm.
can go into as much detail as we have time for.
Oh yeah, 100%. So do you want to? So two questions. So first of which is, do you have any final words for anyone listening? And number two is, where can people find you?
Yeah, so most of the time I'm easiest to reach on my Instagram at Digital Marketer Man. If you're looking for turnkey services, trinitymarketing.io is the place to go right now. We offer everything from Facebook advertising to website development to developers on demand, where you pay a monthly fee and you have someone to go to pretty much 24/7. So that's super helpful. Any last words? I have a lot of great book recommendations. Reach out to me about those, and I'll give you very specific book recommendations for your situation. But on a general basis, one of my favorite books is Contagious: Why Things Catch On. That's just a great book to really give you an understanding of how social media is going to play a bigger part and how you can create products and services that are actually going to catch on if you're still in that phase of creating a product or service or content that's going to work. So, Contagious: Why Things Catch On, Jonah Berger, great book to read. If you need more advice on websites, Making Websites Win, and I actually have that book right here. That's a great book. Making Websites Win, Dr. Carl Blanks and Ben Jason. That is one of my favorite books when it comes to websites. They have a lot of incredible insight in there that goes very in depth into the conversion rate optimization of websites. A lot of people are a little too focused on making their website look pretty and aesthetically pleasing, which is a key part of a converting website. But at the end of the day, if you don't have call to actions in the right places, or they're hard to see, or they're hard to click, or if your website is not optimized for all of the different platforms that are out there nowadays, then you're going to run into some conversion issues. So, many different ways to go about that. But that's pretty much what I'm going to leave you with. I'll talk forever about websites and marketing.
Well, good stuff. I mean, no one better than I know to talk about it. So thank you so much for your time and your expertise. So yeah, Gavin, thank you so much once again, and I'll go ahead and get ready to sign on off.
Absolutely. Have a good one.
Thank you. You too. Thank you so much. All right, everyone. Well, thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of Sundays with Josue. We're going to go ahead and be back here in 2 weeks with another episode for you. Most likely, the next episode, if I can recruit the invitee, is going to be discussing how to be a high performer and a high producer while still having satisfaction and happiness. So, if you guys like the video, go ahead and leave a like on the video. Go ahead and comment on any future topics you want to see discussed. And I'll go ahead and bloop up 2 more videos on the screen here. And once again, thank you guys so much, and we'll see you guys next time.